Mr. President, we often talk here in this chamber and in this country of ours about the dream of a college education. College education opens doors, leads to higher quality of life. College education can boost our wages and our incomes. College education is a first-class ticket to the middle class. We often talk about the young people in our communities who have made that dream a reality. And they may not have come from much. Their parents saved what they could. In many cases, they're the first in their family to go to college. They took out loans. They worked at night, in many cases, and on weekends. They hit the books. In many cases, they graduated with honors. They got good-paying jobs, and they raised a family. And they plan to send their kids to college, too. That's the dream we talk about. But for too many students across our country today, their dream of a college education has turned into a nightmare. Earlier this week, 45,000 college students who were enrolled at a school called ITT Tech awoke and learned that their college was closed. Not for snow day, not for holiday. ITT Tech closed its doors for good after years of questionable business practices and financial woes. Many of these 45,000 students are living a nightmare this week. They're scrambling to transfer to another school. They're hoping their credits will count elsewhere so they don't have to start over again. They're scrambling to find out if they're eligible for debt forgiveness on their student loans. I rise today, though, to talk about a particular group of students who've been harmed by the sudden closure of ITT Tech. Our nation's veterans and their families. Until this week, there were nearly 7,000 veterans enrolled at ITT Tech using the post-9/11 GI Bill to help finance their education. As a veteran myself of the Vietnam War, I know what it is to be eligible for the GI Bill, which I was, my generation was. And while it was not as generous as this one of today, nonetheless, it was a great lifesaver for me and a lot of other folks with whom I served. But the post-9/11 GI Bill, while generous, is a finite benefit. It provides up to 36 months of tuition and housing benefits for veterans, as well as members of their family. If the veteran doesn't use this benefit, their spouse can. If their spouse doesn't use the benefit, their dependent children may. It's an incredible benefit. But veteran students at ITT Tech have no recourse to get those GI Bill tuition benefits back to put toward their studies at another college. And the housing allowance that our veteran families spent on will come to an abrupt halt because they are no longer enrolled in classes. They've been robbed of their time and their hard-earned benefits. And frankly, taxpayers have been robbed of our tax dollars. Mr. President, when I think about the men and women who volunteered to serve our country during a time of war, it is unfathomable to me that this is the position we could leave them at a defunct college without a plan to help them get their benefits back and without a way to pay their rent or their mortgage next month. I think it's shameful. I also think enough is enough. Congress must act to protect our veterans in this instance, as we do in so many others. I don't believe that all for-profit schools are bad actors. They aren't. Some do a good job. But the poor educational and employment outcomes for students across this sector are undeniable. The damage that ITT Tech has inflicted upon students and taxpayers is undeniable. Let's just take a moment and look at the facts. ITT Tech is facing lawsuits by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and multiple state attorneys general for illegal loan schemes, deceiving shareholders, and for deceptive recruiting. ITT Tech's accreditor recently found that the school, this is a quote, is not in compliance and is unlikely to become in compliance with accrediting standards, close quote. ITT Tech's closure leaves taxpayers on the hook for $500 million in closed school loan discharges. $500 million. Mr. President, ITT Tech is one of the top recipients of post-9/11 GI Bill dollars since 2009. ITT Tech did not use this massive taxpayer investment to provide a high-quality education to too many veterans. They used it for recruitment, they used those dollars for advertising, and ultimately for profit. ITT Tech failed veterans and taxpayers for years. And when they closed their doors this week, they left taxpayers and veterans and their families in the lurch. It's shameful. And again, enough is enough. The Department of Veterans Affairs must now work closely with the Department of Education to ensure that ITT Tech's student veterans have the resources and guidance they need to transfer and continue their studies at a high-quality institution of higher learning. And we in Congress have work to do, too. I believe we have a particular responsibility to hold bad actors accountable and increase protection for veterans who plan on enrolling at for-profit schools that are under investigation and heading for bankruptcy. For-profit schools like ITT Tech and Corinthian colleges, which also suddenly collapsed last year, target veterans for their generous benefit that we as taxpayers provide for them. And those schools exploit something called the 90-10 loophole that allows for-profit schools to be 100% reliant on federal taxpayer dollars, 100%. Congress can take meaningful steps to protect veterans and their families, and chief among them would be closing this loophole. Mr. President, the 90-10 loophole has directly led to this ongoing nightmare for student veterans at Corinthian, at ITT Tech, and at countless other schools failing to deliver on the promise of a high-quality education. So in conclusion, Mr. President, let me say, Congress must act. We must act to restore the dream of a high-quality college education for our nation's veterans. It is well past time to address this situation. Enough is enough. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor. Thank you.